Right, let's talk about France, shall we? Very much in the news at the moment. Lots of things to discuss. Let's go across the channel and talk to the Spectator's excellent man, en français. That is Gavin Mortimer, of course. Hello, Gavin.
Bonsoir, Kevin.
Bonsoir. First of all, let's talk about. By the way, I've got to talk about Mr. and Mrs. Macron later on. Is she belting him this week, or is he okay so far?
No, I think he's been grounded this week.
Oh, has he? Well, we'll talk about that strange marriage in a little while. But more importantly, on Saturday, we saw 1,195 migrants come across, 1,200 in a single day. That is the fourth highest number ever in a single day. The highest number this year, and actually the highest number since 2022. A massive armada, essentially allowed to walk across the French beaches into the water, paddle to their dinghies, climb aboard, and then complete the journey, the 21-mile journey to Dover, Folkestone, somewhere like that, the Kent coast. Now we're learning that due to our anger, because we gave, or Rishi Sunak gave Macron £500 million 3 years ago, was it 2022 or 2023, £500 million to patrol the French beaches, to stop the boats, to stop the migrants. We are learning now that having given them £500 million, the French are now discussing amending their laws so that the gendarmes, les cops, will be allowed for the first time to actually paddle into the water to follow the migrants and maybe stop them, maybe stop the boats, to go into the water, not up to here, ankle deep. Hitherto, they haven't been allowed to do that by French law. So all the migrants have done is get their toes into the English Channel, and at that point, as we're looking at that now, the gendarmes step back and watch them. Now they're saying, oh, well, perhaps you ought to amend that law so that we can pursue the migrants into the sea and perhaps stop them boats setting off on these very dangerous journeys. So only now, 2 years and 3 months into this £500 million deal, are the French considering allowing their cops to literally go ankle deep into the sea. What on earth is going on there?
I wrote about this today, Kevin, in The Spectator, that undoubtedly we've seen pictures there of the French police just standing by as the boats are launched, and it's not a good, the optics aren't good. But in fact, after the deal with Sunak was done, you'd have thought some bright spark in the British government would have made sure that the laws were such that we were handing this money and they would actually do something. In fairness to the French police, they did for a couple of years intercept the boats at sea, even going so far as to puncture them before they got out to deep water. But inevitably, left-wing human rights groups, NGOs and the media, beginning of last year, Le Monde, which is the French equivalent of The Guardian, did a big expose about this. It caused outrage, so this was stopped. So really, as I wrote today, it's an easy target, the French police, but we've got to go right further back to the Mediterranean, to the source of the problem. And that is just that the boats are continuing to come across the Mediterranean. There was a slight dip last year because of Georgia Maloney. But this year, for example, just one stat, Kev, the last week of April, 1,100 migrants landed on Lampedusa. The year before, it was 106.
Wow.
So that's a tenfold increase. And until we have a policy, as Nigel Farage alluded to on Saturday, of copying the Australians a decade ago and pushing back the boats, whether it's in the English Channel or the Mediterranean, this is just going to continue, and politicians will look to score cheap points against the French police and other organisations. But we've got to really start pushing back the boats, because the weather is the forecast for this for the next few weeks is excellent. It's been a particularly good spring in France, hence the numbers. And with the weather, last time we spoke, Kevin, I remember we talked about this, that come the more clement, stable weather, the numbers are going to increase, and that's it. And you're not going to smash the gangs until you go to North Africa and put in place, as Georgia Maloney said in 2022 when she was first elected, we've got to have reception hotspots outside Europe where everyone can be processed, and we can separate the economic migrants, the majority, to the minority who are genuinely seeking, fleeing war and persecution.
Yeah, I mean, you know, smashing the gangs, as Keir Starmer obsessively drones on about, it's just a flawed strategy. You've got to stop the migrants. This is about supply and demand, the basic concept of business. You know, the demand is the migrants. The supply will always be there, so you can smash all the gangs you like. There'll be new ones tomorrow morning to deal with the demand. So stop the migrants, then there are no customers, then you've smashed the gang. So we're doing it the wrong way round. And just to go back to the point about the gendarmes, I don't think anybody is specifically blaming the French police, because they are actually following French law. Apparently, hitherto, until now, they've been told, don't you dare step into that water. The reason, and I'm talking about when it's that deep, I mean literally ankle deep, the reason being officially that if there are any altercations and they happen in the sea, people could get drowned. So they're just obeying orders, as it were. But generally speaking, Gavin, what's your take on the attitude of the French government to the migrant crisis? Because over here in Britain, the way we see it is the French don't really want to stop the migrants leaving France. Every migrant that leaves France and comes to Britain is a problem off their hands. So we detect a certain disingenuousness in terms of the France's alleged commitment to stopping the boats.
Well, what you've got is, Kevin, for a year now, it's almost a year to the day since Macron's party got a drubbing in the European elections. He called this snap election. He got another drubbing, and Marine Le Pen's National Rally got 37% of a popular vote, but Macron cobbled together just another centrist government with a few figures from a left, a few figures from a centre-right. And so really, since then, French politics, it's just stagnating. Nothing, there's no decision-making. The public debt is rising, the crime is rising, drug trafficking. It's a complete shambles. Yeah, dare I say it, the French government actually makes Keir Starmer's government look reasonably competent. So that's a sign of just what a shambles it is. You have got an interior minister, Bruno Retailleau, who is right-wing, and he wants a referendum on immigration, as do about 75% of the French public. Macron refuses to have that referendum because he knows he loses. And time and again, Kevin, it's the same in the UK and in Germany and across Europe. Opinion polls show that about 3/4 of the electorate want their borders controlled. They want an end to this uncontrolled migration. But what we've got is an elite centre who refuse to listen to the people, and even when you get someone like Maloney, she's then thwarted by Brussels, by von der Leyen, who is completely aligned with Macron and Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister. And it's just so the people want something done, but the elite aren't listening to them. And the situation is, of course, in France now, Macron's a lame duck president. He struts around Europe trying to look important when he's not getting slapped by his wife. But at home, he's a laughing stock. But unfortunately, he's in power for another 2 years. And so in that time, don't expect the migrant crisis on the Channel Coast to be solved. If anything, it's just going to get worse.
I think you're right there, Gavin. Interesting times in Poland, which may reflect on what could happen going forward in France. You never know. So in Poland there's been an election, and the right-wing nationalist Karol Nawrocki, to everyone's surprise, has won. a narrow victory, but he's won. The Prime Minister there, Donald Tusk, he of EU notoriety, you could say fame, but I say notoriety, in a classic sort of French way, he's kind of moving all the pieces, trying to thwart the democratic decision of the Polish people. He's even called a vote of no confidence in his own government, which somehow could deflect from Karol Nawrocki being able to fully take control of the country. And it strikes me that this is sort of similar to what goes on in France, and this is what I wanted to ask you about. How much longer are the French people going to put up with a democratic system that basically deprives them of democracy? I mean, we watch this from across the sea and from across the channel, and we've got nothing to boast about here. But we go, hang on a second, so the French people just went to the polls, they voted Marine Le Pen in, so she's the new president, the new prime minister, whatever. Oh, there's another election in 7 days' time, and they're going to move all the pieces, move all the dials, and that will mean the decision of the French people is changed. How much longer are the French people going to put up with this bizarre system that prevents them achieving what they voted for?
Yeah, it's a question that's being asked frequently in the the equivalents of Talk TV in France. That there's been outrage for a year since this happened. They call it the Republican Front, where basically you have centrists and leftists, communists, socialists, Greens ganging up and just thwarting Marine Le Pen, who's not far right, left wing. Economically she's left wing, so she's not far right. But they cry fascist, Nazi, all the usual school playground stuff. And the French, because the majority, a bit like the UK, it's the French equivalent of the Red Wall who vote for Marine Le Pen. So it's the working class who, of course, suffer most from mass uncontrolled immigration, whose cost of standard of living has declined. And there's a lot of anger. There's growing anger out there. And Macron is completely oblivious to it. As I mentioned earlier, he refuses to have a referendum on any of the big issues. And so the next election's in 2 years, but there are municipal council elections next year, which I think we're going to see again. And let's not forget, Kevin, that in March this year, Marine Le Pen was disqualified for 5 years.
A bit of lawfare there, hey?
In a bit of lawfare there, yeah. And this isn't just happening in France. Saw today, Geert Wilders has just withdrawn from a coalition. He won the Dutch election 18 months ago. And again, this grubby coalition of the left and the centre thwarted his becoming prime minister. We see something similar happening in Austria. We saw the Romanian presidential election annulled and then the candidate disqualified. In Germany, the AfD finished second in the election and they were shut out of a coalition. So it's deeply troubling what's going on, that we've got this arrogant, out of touch elite who refuse to listen to the will of a silent majority, whether it's in the UK, France, Germany, Austria, Holland. And I think things are coming to a head, and that if the elite don't listen, particularly when it comes to immigration, which is the issue of the day, there's going to be trouble ahead.
Do you think in 2 years' time that there may be a reckoning for Macron and these metropolitan elites who ignore the will of the people? Do you think that the will of the people may finally prevail in a couple of years?
I do. I think Jordan Bardella, who's the young president of he's an MEP, the young president of a national rally. So Marine Le Pen leads the party in parliament. He's the Bardella. He's very personable. He's got a good media image, appeals to the young, appeals more to the middle class. He's more economically liberal than Le Pen, but still a social conservative. So I think in a way it could backfire, this lawfare, in getting rid of Marine Le Pen. She's appealed the decision, which will be heard in a year's time, but Bardella is coming up. And I think the outrage, the French know what's gone on, just as the Romanians knew what went on with their annulled election. The French know that Marine Le Pen, she was accused of misusing EU funds, not to enrich herself personally, but just to help the party with pay its assistants. It's done, dare I say it, quite a bit in the EU. She got a 5-year disqualification, €100,000 fine. But Bardella's there waiting, and he's coming up, and he's very popular. But I think such is the outrage among the people, and also, Kevin, such is the anger and the disillusionment with Macron, who came to power exactly 8 years ago, saying, "I'm not like the past, like Sarkozy of a centre right or Hollande of a centre left. I'm something new," a bit like Tony Blair. "I'm the third way," and he's ended up even worse than what was in the past. He's just another of this out of touch, arrogant, aloof, contemptuous elite.
Well, perhaps that's what Brigitte Macron thinks of him, and that's maybe why she belted him at Hanoi airport coming off that plane. But seriously, Gavin, what is going on? I mean, there must have been a lot of speculation, a lot of stuff in the papers and on the telly over in France about this extraordinary incident. What's your take on it? What are people thinking is going on in this marriage? My understanding of the dynamic is that possibly due to their age difference and the fact that she was his teacher when they first met when he was 15, that there's a sort of son-mother relationship, that she wears the trousers and calls the tune, and he stepped out of line somewhere here, so she belted him. What's your take on this marriage? What are people saying in France about all this?
Well, the first thing to say is that the French image matters a lot to the French, and there's just bewilderment that he allowed himself to be photographed or filmed in this compromising position just as the door swung open. And the French don't like being laughed at. And you may remember about a decade ago, Kevin, when Francois Hollande was president, he was filmed on the back of a scooter.
Oh, his little moped, he'll go around and see his mistress.
Right, exactly.
I remember that.
And he with a little helmet on, and he became a laughing stock, and France did too. So the French, this will really hurt Macron, because he's always portrayed himself. I've described him before as nothing more really than a good actor in a sharp suit. And this, he fluffed his lines big time here. But the point of, I mean, it's a very interesting, because his relationship with women in general is interesting. He doesn't get on at all well with Giorgia Meloni. Funny enough, he did meet her today, and there's
I saw that.
Yeah, forced photos. But in general, he prefers the company of men in his government. He likes to be surrounded by advisors who are men. Most of his important ministers are men. And he seems to have a problem with women his own age, younger women, sort of confident, strong women. And the only woman he really seems to have any sort of strong relationship is with Brigitte, who, as you said, is old enough to be his mother. He had a very strange relationship with his own parents. He doesn't really seem to have had a close relationship. The person really who raised him, certainly intellectually, was his grandmother, who just thought he was the bee's knees, and she was a teacher, left-leaning, and of course Macron is culturally, socially very left-wing. And so, whereas Brigitte, she comes from a rather provincial conservative family. So it has been said that she's the one with the common sense on cultural and social issues. And she said a couple of months ago, earlier in this year, she complained that people were being nasty about Macron, about her husband. And she said it in a way rather like a mother complaining about her little Johnny being picked on in the school playground. So I think you're right, and a lot of French people think that too, that this is a very odd and not a particularly healthy relationship between the two of them. And was Brigitte just shoving him back into line?
Interesting. I mean, she's 72, he's 47. In itself, strange enough. And then, of course, that they met when he was a 15-year-old pupil at her school. She was a 40-year-old drama teacher. left her husband for him. The Macron family sent Emmanuel to Paris to get away from her, but no dice. They end up getting married. It's very, very odd indeed. And that footage in Hanoi will haunt Monsieur Macron forever. Gavin, really good to catch up with you. Great stuff. Thank you very much for your time. That's Gavin Mortimer, the Spectator's man over there in France. Interesting times, I think. Let me know what you think about that. The French, it's like I say about the migrant crisis. Oh, look, well, they just stand there watching. It's because they kind of want to. They don't really want to stop the migrants. Every migrant that is stuck in Calais is the French problem. If they get on a dinghy, come across 21 miles to Dover or Folkestone or Deal, these Kentish south coast towns, they are then our problem, and we know the rest of that story. They become our problem sometimes for donkey's years, 10 years, 5 years. We have to put them in hotels, we have to give them benefits, they fight their legal case, doctors, nurses, you know what I'm saying. So that's why the French want to get rid of them, so that we can look after them.